Hello and welcome to the Love Doc podcast with hosts Waldo Wachewski and Ophelia Bruschi.
Okay, let's get into this. We've got a really complex situation today, one that I think, well, probably feels familiar to some people listening. We're diving into a reader's struggle with a friend. It's gotten really challenging because this friend keeps losing jobs, or rather quitting them, and there's this whole pattern of negativity, perceived slights.
Exactly. And we've got a couple of interesting angles on this. We have the reader's own account, right? How it felt from their side.
Yeah, the raw experience.
And then we also have the Love Doc's take, which offers a very different perspective on the friend's actions.
So our mission here really is to unpack these dynamics, try to understand the patterns, maybe offer some ways to think about these kinds of, well, tough friendships.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's start with the story from the reader, who's calling themselves her dead friend.
It's that situation, where you try to help someone you care about.
And it just keeps blowing up.
Pretty much. So the reader helped this friend get 3 jobs. 3 jobs in 5 years.
Wow. And every single time, the friend quits. Feels like she's been wronged somehow. The latest one really seems to capture the whole pattern.
Yeah, this one sounds quite telling. What jumped out at me was the friend's reason versus, well, the other side of the story.
Right. The friend was convinced her supervisor felt threatened by her intelligence, was like actively holding her back.
Okay. A common enough feeling maybe, but...
But then the reader, trying to understand, talked to a colleague, kind of quietly checked in. And the feedback was different. The supervisor apparently felt the friend was just, quote, hijacking meetings, throwing out her own ideas, stuff that wasn't approved or discussed beforehand.
Oof. Okay, that's a clash right there, a big one.
Huge. And the friend's reaction, not, oh, maybe I should adjust my approach.
No.
Nope. Straight to HR.
Complained about the supervisor.
And HR.
Well, based on the meeting hijacking report, they sided with the supervisor. Which, maybe isn't that surprising?
Lean to the friend, too. Again.
Right. And the reader makes it clear this isn't new, is it? This has happened before at the other job she helped her get.
Exactly. It points to this ongoing difficulty maybe in dealing with workplace dynamics or feedback.
Yeah, navigating professional environments, taking criticism. It seems like there's a real block there.
And it sounds like it goes beyond just work stuff, too.
Right. The reader paints a broader picture, doesn't she? It's not just jobs.
No, she talks about this general negativity. Even uses the word paranoia. Like worries about her cat being sick, thinks her neighbor's creepy, she's estranged from her sister, constantly worried she's getting sick.
Always feeling excluded or disliked.
Yeah, that kind of vibe. It sounds like a constant narrative of being wronged, of the world being against her somehow.
Which must be absolutely exhausting. For her, obviously, but also for the people around her, like our reader.
Totally. You can see why the listener reached a breaking point.
After this latest job issue and finding out the supervisor's side.
Yeah, she decided she just couldn't help with job searches anymore. It was starting to affect her own reputation, potentially.
That makes sense. A difficult boundary to draw.
And she even, gently suggested therapy. Maybe talking to someone could help with these, persistent negative feelings.
And how did that go down?
Not well. The friend got really angry, apparently focused on how could she afford therapy when she's unemployed.
Deflection, maybe.
Seems like it. And then just hung up.
Wow.
Holy crap. You're psychotically obsessed with the Love Doc, but can't think of a flashy gauche way to share your obsession with the world? Stop thinking and make a beeline for the Love Doc's home sweet home on the interwebs, thepleasurecraft.com, where you can find a veritable treasure trove of sick merch that will make even your coolest friends super gel. Honestly, I don't know why you didn't already think of this yourself, but you're welcome. Have fun on the Pleasure Craft. It was made just for you. Let me spell it out for you one more time. www.thepleasurecraft.com.
So, a complete shutdown when faced with the idea that maybe the issue isn't entirely external.
Right. Very defensive. And then silence. Until the reader heard from another friend that she's now, quote, dead to her.
Dead to her.
For not having her back with the supervisor.
Even though the reader tried to help her get the job and even tried to understand the situation.
Exactly. So the reader feels it's completely untrue and so unfair, which, yeah, you can understand that.
Absolutely. All that effort, and this is the result. Being cut off and blamed.
So that leaves her with this big question. Does she try and defend herself? Explain her side? Or just let it go? Leave it alone?
It's a tough one. Which brings us to the other perspective, right? the love doc.
Yeah, and their take is, well, it's quite different. They sort of try to imagine what's going on inside the friend's head.
Instead of just focusing on the outward behavior, the negativity, they spin this idea.
That the friend sees herself as basically the smartest person in the room, always.
Right. It's almost this like internal narrative of suffering because everyone else is less intelligent.
Love Doc uses some pretty sarcastic language, talking about the burden of being brilliant, surrounded by people making tedious yammerings.
Yeah, it's quite a portrayal, frustrated by everyone else's perceived lack of smarts.
And this interpretation is maybe suggests something underneath, right? Like, why would someone think like that?
Well, the love doc hints that maybe it's about validation, like an inflated sense of self that needs constant proof.
So people are basically bowing down?
If they aren't fawning and obsequious, as the love doc puts it.
Then it must be jealousy. Or a conspiracy against her genius.
Exactly. It suggests maybe a very fragile ego hiding underneath that perceived superiority. And maybe the job quips, the drama, it's all a way to kind of protect that self-image when reality clashes with it.
It's a provocative idea.
Yeah.
And the love doc takes it even further with some comparisons.
Yeah, this was interesting. They kind of lump her in, conceptually at least, with people known for really unconventional, sometimes conspiratorial beliefs.
Missions RFK Jr., some fictional President White Sockets, J.D. Vance.
And the point seems to be not about the specific beliefs, but about that feeling of being like an enlightened genius fighting against the ignorant masses.
Someone whose view of reality is just radically different from everyone else's.
Which really makes you wonder, how receptive would someone like that be to, a calm chat?
Probably not very. The love doc predicts any attempt by the listener to explain herself would just be met with a paranoid tirade.
Yeah, it would likely just feed into the friend's narrative rather than change anything. Like, see, she is against me.
Love doc throws in a bit of self-deprecating humor too, right? Acknowledging their own burden of average intelligence.
Yeah. And preferring positivity. Then there's that bit about us all being stupid meat puppets hurtling towards existential oblivion.
Which is dark, but kind of funny. But the point is, negativity is generally just bad, harmful.
Yeah, not helpful. And so the advice that flows from this interpretation
is basically, let her be. Give the friend time and space to prove her own genius.
Without being saddled with the burden of your assistance. That phrasing again.
The implication being maybe the reader's help was, in a way, enabling this cycle.
Possibly. And stepping back means the friend has to actually, deal with the result of her own choices. Or lack of choices.
And the love doc ends by saying this whole situation, this distance, will probably be good for the reader.
Yeah, basically validating the reader's need for space. And adding that a true friend would want what's best for you, even if it means distance.
Which is a strong point. So, okay, we have these two really different lenses.
Yeah. On one side, the reader's very real hurt and frustration, feeling betrayed after trying to help.
And on the other, the love doc, almost imaginative, leap into the friend's potential mindset. This idea of perceived genius and paranoia fueling the behavior, however weird that sounds from outside.
It's a fascinating contrast.
So for you listening, maybe you're dealing with something similar, a relationship that's just incredibly draining or confusing.
What do you take away from this? Thinking about the reader's pain, but also considering this, let's say, alternative psychological explanation from the love doc.
Even if that explanation seems extreme, what path forward seems best for your own health, your own well-being, even if that friendship doesn't end up looking like you thought it would?
Yeah, definitely gives you something to chew on.
To read the column that spawned this podcast, go to austinchronicle.com/columns/thelovedoc. There are probably worse things to do with your time, right?